Puppet warp is a great way to bend and distort objects in Photoshop. To do it in a flexible manner, I'm going to select the spoon, then right-click and convert this to a smart object. Then I'll choose Edit and Puppet Warp. By default, it shows a mesh over the contents of the layer, and we can click and lay down as many pins as we want. The more pins that we add, the more control we'll have over the warp. We can use the options bar in order to set the rigidity of the warp. So it's set to normal now, and as I move it, we can see that it maintains kind of the pixel fidelity as best as it can with the warp. If I change this to rigid, now it's going to be a much more stiff bend. If we change this to distort, it's going to be really highly elastic, and it dramatically expands or contracts the distortion. So I'm going to return to normal. Now we can use Command H to hide the mesh. If you ever wanted to hide the pins, just hold down the H key, and then when you release them, you'll see the pins again. If we drag the shape on top of itself, or if you have multiple objects on one layer, we can change the stacking order of the pins by clicking on the pin depth stacking icons in the options bar to move them forward or backwards. All right, let's move that back up to the top. I can use the Shift key if I want to select multiple pins at a time and then reposition them. And let's add another pin here. If I hold down the Option key and move my cursor a little bit away from the pin, I can actually rotate around that pin. But if you hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows and you actually click on the pin, you get the scissors, and that would delete that pin. You can also just select a pin and tap the Delete key if you wanted to delete it. If you ever want to reset the warp, just click on the Reset icon. All right, let's make a quick bend to this image. I'll just drag the center pin over a little bit and then maybe just adjust the top and bottom pins. All right, I'll apply that transformation. We can see on the Layers panel that because I was working with a smart object, Photoshop has added Puppet Warp as a smart filter. If I ever want to edit the contents of the filter, I just need to double-click where it says Puppet Warp. That will give me the Puppet Warp controls so that I can make my changes, and then tap the check mark in order to update them. If I want to make a transformation to this spoon, and I choose the Edit menu and then Free Transform, the problem is that Photoshop can't display the smart filter at the same time that it's transforming. So if I were to click OK, well, I get the straight spoon, and it's hard for me to see what it would actually look like in the image area. So I'll cancel out of this, and I'm going to nest this smart object within its own smart object so that I don't have that issue. So on the Layers panel, I'll right-click, and I'll choose to convert to smart object. Now, when I use Command T on Mac or Control T on Windows, I can now transform this, making it a little bit smaller and also rotating it in the image area while I can still see the Puppet Warp. All right, I'll tap Enter or Return to apply that, and then use Command J on Mac or Control J on Windows in order to make a duplicate of the layer in the Layers panel. Command T on Mac or Control T on Windows will show the free transform. In this case, I can right-click anywhere within the transformation handles. I'll choose to flip it horizontally, and then again, choosing to flip vertically. I'll just reposition that a little bit in the image area and tap Enter or Return to apply that transformation. Now, because I made a duplicate of the smart object using the Layers panel, if I ever needed to make a change to the Puppet Warp, I could double-click in order to edit the contents of the smart object, and then double-click on Puppet Warp, make my change. In this case, I'll move this up a bit. Tap the check mark in order to apply that, then save this, and when I close it, we can see that it updates both instances of that smart object in the Layers panel. Now, to just adhere these spoons to the background a little bit better, from the bottom of the Layers panel, I'll select the Effects icon. I'll choose Drop Shadow. Then in the Layer Styles dialog, I'll move this out of the way. Click to reset it to the default, and then just increase the size a little bit. And if I wanted to reposition it, I could click in the image area and just drag. I'll click OK to apply the layer style, and then holding down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows, I'll drag the layer effect down to the second spoon layer. So as you can see, converting a layer to a smart object and then using Puppet Warp is a great way to freely bend and warp objects non-destructively in Photoshop.